like, what is this? What am I trying to do here? Polish it, make it pretty. Me talk pretty one day. Weeaboo translations, being a Twinkie. Hello. Look, my mirror's not so bad today, is it? Look at the most laziest fit of 2022. I just can't be bothered, it's so hot. T-shirt. Also, but I'm wearing all black. I just need to step out of the house. It's just that time of the day. Going for my stupid walk for my stupid mental health. Yesterday, a cafe liked my Instagram photo, and it's like 700 meters away. Why not pay them a visit? A little white on white action today. Got this new Our Legacy necklace for I think about like 60 pounds a steal, because other resellers were putting it up for like in the hundreds and 200s, straight from the UK. Love it. Given me like, what are they called? Bolo ties? Yeah, just modernized. Gonna go do some reading because I want to finish Dictee, and I can't do it at home for some reason. Let's get... Hello gorgeous people, I'm here to update you on a few things. We finished Etel Adnan's Shifting the Silence. I feel like if you are going through an art block of some sort, this is it. This is, imagine a grandma coked out on 3 espresso shots, telling you about the world, its wars, its nature, lots of flowing streams of water mentioned in here, and her racing through her thoughts and memories. This is what you get. She jumps from like idea to idea about literally everything. Art, love, the creation of art, social issues, her relation to French, her relation to France. Can I read you an excerpt here? Back to days, this one has been exceptional. I haven't seen a single human being, a single living thing. The breeze did not stir. The telephone didn't ring. I did not go out. Went on the deck, saw nobody. I slept late this morning and I will go to bed pretty soon. A perfect day for banana fish. catch the Salinger reference there. France is in ebullition. It doesn't want a revolution, it wants more money. A bitter taste in the mouth. Water stops running through a faucet. The end of utopias. We're always a generation behind reality. Do you want to quit this world on such a sour note? Isn't quitting always tinged with some form of melancholy? Or is melancholy itself out of fashion? Who's going to tell? Pretty much like that throughout its very short form. Breezy read. I recommend bringing this to the beach, to the park, in one sitting. Fabulous. Etel Adnan. Artist, works with painting. Her art definitely reflects the way that she thinks and writes. If you enjoy her work, definitely recommend looking at her brain. Then we finished Disorientation. Lots to cover with this one. Okay, I'm gonna have to divide this into spoiler, the good, and the bad. So spoiler, putting this out there, you know, you have been warned. There's a chapter, I'll chapterize this and to let you know that this is a spoiler and you can totally ignore it if you wish. This is based off of a 2015 Buzzfeed article by Jenny Zhang. It's based off of a white poet named Michael Derrick Hudson, who was rejected 40 times for a poem that he published, and then he published it under an Asian pseudonym. And after 9 rejections, he got it published and in an anthology, and then later said, "See, Asian people have opportunities all the time. Because I'm white, I don't get these opportunities." Sparked a controversy that I don't think I even remember, or like, I don't think it was talked about so much, or it just wasn't in my news feed enough to know that this happened and he got away with it. And Sherman Alexie, who sort of reviewed and curated the collection and gathered everything together, decided to keep it in. Not quite sure what that says or what you may now think about Sherman Alexie. I liked there was one, what is it? He put out like a memoir that I read as a teenager and thought it was absolutely incredible. A wonderful, funny voice. And I think he put out another memoir that I was supposed to read, but just haven't gotten the chance to reading it. The novel is basically a fictionalized version of this to its very extremes, about Yellowface. And I feel like this aspect of the novel is like a major spoiler. I like decided to read articles in the midst of reading this book just to sort of figure out if it was going to be a DNF or not. Yeah, reading different interviews, it basically spoiled the novel for me. And I just feel like that surprise in the book is just really important coming into it blind. Okay, spoiler officially over. We don't have to talk about it anymore. Okay, the good. Okay, this is a very bold and brash novel to have come out. We look at issues of race, class, yellow fever, privilege, white privilege, and a whole bunch of other stuff set on a university campus, Ivy League, East Coast. Chou is incredible. She is unafraid of tackling every single Asian American issue at hand in the creative world and on the campus setting. We deal with like sensitive students, PC, policing language, power struggles in how advisors take advantage of you, what it means to be a minority as a minority and a minority as an artist. We get protests, boyfriends with yellow fever, weeaboo translations, being a Twinkie. Oh, if anyone doesn't know, Twinkie is like being white on the inside and yellow on the outside. I think another term is banana. Person is a banana. Yeah, just throwing that out there. But there's just a slew of things that are tackled in this novel. It's big, it's brave, and relentless. To a point where it's infuriating, but like infuriating good. Because some of these things need to be said and addressed. And it's really sad that the surge of like violence against Asian Americans and Asian immigrants in the past few months have been really hard to deal with. And I get why Elaine put out this book. And in an interview, she expressed that she wrote this in anger. And I understand why. Like, I am still incredibly angry at what's happened to, you know, Asian American elders. Like, for Asian Americans, respect your elders is such a big thing. I mean, I feel like for most cultures, but like for Asians especially, in regards to like family and culture, and they're just like the OGs that need the respect, and they don't get that respect. And to see them, you know, being like cut open with a butcher knife in San Francisco, oh gosh, that just it just made me really sad that the nail salons, or was it the hair salon attack? Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's just like incredible to me that so much hate exists in the world, or like exists enough to incite pain and death on actual living people. These are people who are paying bills, put food on the table. It's really sad. Anywho, we have Ingrid Yang, our protagonist, who is infuriatingly annoying, but for good cause. I think Elaine does a very good job of painting a character who thinks she's perfect in this very naive sense, and then comes to this campus very late, you know, she's working on her dissertation, sort of unlearns all the things she knows about being Asian American, and sort of seeing the darker things at hand and on campus. Yeah, and I don't know if I've ever experienced that before, like following a character who's so sure of themselves and sort of like peeling back the layers of unlearning. Yeah, I always feel it's like the opposite way. You get like kind of a poopy character and they become better people in the end, right? Or not at all. But it's interesting to see this like model minority being broken down into what it means to be a minority in its truest sense, and sort of learning all of that. And then we have Vivian Vo, who is sort of like the PC police, very big advocate, incites protests, Asian American rights and privileges, and the need to be seen, which is very interesting because Ingrid and Vivian glosses over like this Asian on Asian animosity, which I feel like isn't talked about enough. And I don't know why. I think it's just like this, I feel like for women naturally put themselves in competition of each other because of patriarchy. But like it's another level to have like Asian women compete with each other because it's like this battle of smarts. And yeah, I don't know, if anyone's Asian out there, I think you understand that, like, you know, you go to a family party and all your cousins have gone to like UCs or Ivy Leagues, and then you go to like a state college, and you know what your parents do, what your jobs, income, it becomes this like really gross food chain assembly, and you kind of understand in your own insecurity where you belong on the food chain within your own family. It's disgusting. I hate it. If any of my relatives are watching, I'm so sorry, but I just hate going to your parties because I don't want to put myself in competition with anybody. I'm just there for a good time, you know? I'm there for the food and a good time. That's all. Please don't ask me what my job is or where I went to school or any of that. Honestly, there's so many questions in the world, and you result to those two. Really? The world is far more interesting than that. Anywho, we also get Ingrid's boyfriend, who is white, of course, and is a translator for a Japanese author, and he sort of goes on a book tour. And yeah, that is a very interesting part of the story, and I will speak no further on that. Now the bad. Okay, I think I mentioned this before, but Elaine. What's with all the ellipses? These ellipses are used for dramatic and comedic effect. I don't know, but I feel like the first thing you learn in a creative writing 101 class is that you don't need exclamations or ellipses to create these effects. It's already in the words. Like, you should be using your word. It's called creative writing, not creative punctuation. I don't understand. Oh, there are so many ellipses. And with that, the book was incredibly unfunny. It was like cringe, like Wong Fu Productions cringe. And with that, I want to say, and I wrote this in my Goodreads, I wrote it better than I'll say it. So I'm going to read what I wrote. Her writing, it feels like it should go straight to teleplays for Wong Fu Productions' Netflix adaptation for the book. Yeah, not a single chuckle out of me. You know how when you read something, you register it as funny, and then that's it? You don't like chuckle? This is a chuckleless book. No chuckles. So sad. It just feels like it should go straight to either like a mini series or a film, and the writing was just not for me. Another issue that I had with the writing was that it's done in the third person, and with that distance, it just doesn't work with the interiority that Ingrid has. There are moments where she like really thinks things out and creates questions. She asks herself a lot of rhetorical questions, and with that, it just makes sense to write it in the first person, which is interesting because Elaine initially wrote it in the first person, and through like a second or third draft, she decided to go with the third person. It's just really odd because the style in which Ingrid speaks eventually becomes the style of the third person, and it's just really odd. You could tell that, I don't know, the book just then comes off as amateurish and very debut-y. That's incredibly sad because this book is dealing with a lot of big, heavy themes, and I think Elaine was just way too ambitious. This novel is incredibly ambitious, and yeah, just falls flat. It's disorienting. This whole book is disorienting. Yeah, this was just a very clunky debut novel. It's great in its themes and what it's trying to achieve, but very, very clunky, especially for 400 pages. But I mean, I'm really excited to see what Elaine does in the future. I think there's a lot of promise in what she has to tackle, and I just loved sort of the themes that were discussed here. Like being Asian American myself and sort of seeing all of these issues being discussed and up for discussion in this, like, in literary fiction, I think is incredible. I'm tired of, you know, high school students only reading the Joy Luck Club. What is up with that? I mean, great, Amy Tan, you're great and all, but like, there's more than that. And it's just sad that, you know, we only have this like one book that's taught. Anyway, some additional notes. Alexander Hsieh, who wrote How to Write an Autobiography, was mentioned in the acknowledgement and helped her sort of write that. I thought that was really interesting. She does mention in an interview that she was sort of tracking sort of this interesting history of Asian American art in like the modern sense. I'm thinking mostly to like early 2006 to 2008 YouTube Asian Americans, Kev Jumba, Happy Slip, Ryan Higa, Wong Fu Productions. She mentions Wong Fu Productions for video of Yellow Fever, which I thought was really interesting for the time because it was like the first time I ever realized, oh, there's a word for this, that white men go after young women, like young Asian women, as sort of like this doll that they can assert their dominance over. And yeah, it's a real, there's a word for it, and at the time I was like really surprised by it. And then sort of following into, again, Jenny Zhang's article of Michael Derek Hudson and that debacle. I can't believe that even happened. Great piece, I'll have it linked downstairs. And she sort of follows all of these internet sensations and articles and sort of collects all of them and puts it into this one novel, which bold and brash it is. And those are my notes for Disorientation. I think it makes for a fun campus read. It will infuriate you, maybe good, maybe bad, and I think that's where some people will lose it. That'll be the deciding factor for them. I'm glad something like this exists. It was just done in a very clunky, amateurish way. But then again, it's a debut novel, but I'm excited to see what Elaine puts out in the very near future. And she also has an article with the cut that is heart-wrenching. I feel terrible for saying this, but much more emotionally impactful than this novel. But I will also link that downstairs. Incredible article. You should read it. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Disorientation. Sorry, I'm pulling up my notes. I've already filmed this video and then I wrote my Goodreads review on it, and I feel like having said my thoughts, writing them down, and needing to like, what is this? What am I trying to do here? Polish it, make it pretty. Me talk pretty one day. That's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to make it sound like I'm not an idiot. Oh, also, I had no idea that there was young adult fiction, and I was going to categorize Disorientation as young adult just because of the language, but didn't realize there was another genre called new adult fiction, where it's like for mid-20-somethings. Did anybody know this? Am I just new to the game? I had no idea. I've been reading for years, and then I'm just learning about this now. Sorry, where was I going? I also finished Dictee by Theresa Kyung. I picked this up because it was mentioned and written so beautifully and so devastatingly in Kathy Park Hong's Minor Feelings. If any of you need the best essays on Asian American lives, that is the one. That is mandatory reading. Minor Feelings. Incredible writer. But she has, I think, 2 essays on Theresa and just like her life, this book, and just like her, you know, very chilling murder. This book was published just a few days after she was murdered by a complete stranger in New York. But Theresa is a poet, filmmaker, and artist, and that makes sense given this novel is not a novel, not a memoir even, but I feel like an emotional space, this sort of non-existent space that occurs before language. This is really a meditation on Theresa's interests, dreams, thoughts, issues with language, coming from the Korean War, surviving that, talking a little bit about the Japanese occupation. Japan occupied Korea for like some decades and literally stripped them of their culture, heritage, identity. Like, you are not allowed to be Korean, which is so odd to think about. It's, what do you call that? It's almost like ethnic genocide, but having the body continue to live, which I feel like is even worse. It's like torture. Theresa explores that through English, Korean, and French, but mostly in English and French. I found this to be unreadable, but there's a certain point where you just kind of have to surrender yourself to the text and sort of listen to the way Theresa is picking at these words, rearranging them in a way that becomes native to you. And I think that's incredibly important because that's where she stands. Like, she feels like a non-native to these languages, and it's sort of this unlearning that you have to do with your relationship to English. Here, I can show you that we get photographs, we get calligraphy, we get poetry, both in French and English. Sometimes they mix. We get maps. It feels like an exhibition, and without a map, and you sort of have to go around each painting, each video installation, each museum description, and sort of piece things yourself in what language means to Theresa. It's frustrating, but you just have to surrender yourself to it, and incredibly experimental. Yeah, I wrote in my Goodreads review a certain part where she writes poem in French and English, and sort of the liberating translations she has of her own poems. For example, there's a line that goes tout ensemble en une, versus the English, which she translated in all assembled as one, just one. So une is one, but she wrote in French, but in the English she wrote just one, where you can say the same thing in French by saying juste une. So why does just need to exist within the English language and not the French? And what does that do? What does that say? What is just? What is justifiable in obtaining language to the point of understanding? Like, what is that? Yeah, I can even go further to say like tout ensemble en, which I would translate as all together as one, but she translated into English as all assembled as one. And it's this fun play on with ensemble and assembled, and which is interesting because tout ensemble en is basically together one. If you were to like take the literal translation of it, it's all together one. And in the English, it's all assembled as one. As, I feel like, you know, as a simile metaphor, that utilization, what is the difference between that and something being one? You know, something like as one versus something being one. There's just certain liberties that she takes playing with language that really makes you think about choice. The choices you make in language, creating these speech acts, thoughts that come into existence by way of your mouth and by way of incredible stuff. This is definitely not for everyone. A book that's really hard to talk about without actually having to experience it on your own. And I know that this experience isn't for everyone because it is a book that will definitely fly over your head. But it's definitely something that you can revisit even randomly through the pages. Like Renata Adler, if anyone's read Renata Adler, it's kind of like that, but even more disjointed, jumbled, and less of a narrative in some sense and more of like a collection of history. Theresa's history. But those are my thoughts on Dictee. I hope some of that made sense. And I read a big, juicy 400-page novel, and I read this experimental novel. I feel like I should do something light, so we started Sex and Rage by Eve Babitz. Love that. I've already gotten looks on public transit with this gorgeous yellow cover, this like burgundy font, and of course, Eve's name in pink. The original LA girly. Yes, been enjoying it. Makes me miss LA, home. I don't think it's fiction, so I don't think it's as strong as her essays. There's just, I think, you can see that she's just very interested in creating caricatures. And it's fun though, it's just like, you know, these LA characters drinking with men, playing around with their money, their words, being a total badass femme fatale. Yeah, Eve Babitz, love her. But yeah, hope you're doing well. I hope this video isn't incredibly long. Tell me what you're reading, would love to know. And please add me on Goodreads. I've added a bunch of people and it's been fun looking at, I don't know, it just feels like I'm doing things in secret and looking at your journal entries or something. Just seeing what you're adding, like what informs you and what you're interested in, without like having to say anything, which is incredible. But yes, add me on Goodreads so I can snoop on you. Anyway, be well, do good work, and keep in touch.